Alright, my name is D. This is my presentation on Persepolis. So Persepolis is a coming of age story. It's about Marjan Satrapi, and it's told through her perspective of growing up in Iran and all the common misconceptions about growing up there and living there, being from there. It's told in the form of a graphic novel, but it's more like a memoir. It's like it has the comic book aesthetic, but it's more so like a diary, really. It follows her growing up. It follows her religion, relationships, growing up during the Iranian Revolution. She's also like a very, very rebellious individual, and I just think that's displayed prominently throughout the book in a really good way. And the goal of this novel is to shine a light on the lack of education we are exposed to. So the way that Iran and countries like that in the Middle East are perceived, at least through Western culture, it's very dangerous. A lot of poverty, a lot of war, just a lot of stuff going on, a lot of bad stuff. A very negative light is shined on Iran, and we don't talk enough. And not even just Iran, we don't talk enough about some of those other countries we don't know enough about. We don't really talk about all the good that goes on there, and that just because a couple of bad apples are there doesn't mean that it's the same for everyone. So what is it about? Educating yourself, individuality, feminism, religion, false narratives, and irony. I feel like the book touches on each of these topics. The individuality of Marjan, she stands out. She very much so does not want to fit in with others, does not want to look like others. Feminism, I thought her perspective was told from a very feminist approach, and I really appreciated that perspective because I don't feel like very many novels, especially comic books, are told from the perspective of a strong female. So I really appreciated that. Religion, she's often displayed having personal conversations with God. False narratives, like I said earlier, the false narratives we hear about Iran and countries like that. So a little bit about her. She was born November 22nd, 1969 in Iran. She's an only child. Even though she was born and grew up in Iran, she's very influenced by our culture, Western culture, specifically the fashion and the music, how she dresses. I remember reading in the novel that she was getting picked on for the clothes that she was wearing, the shoes that she was wearing, the shirts that she was wearing, shirts that depicted rock bands and stuff like that. She got a lot of grief for. It's her breakthrough graphic novel, and it was adapted into a film, and it was nominated for Best Animated Film at the Academy Awards. She was so smart, and her parents wanted a pretty good education for her that they sent her away to Austria, and she continued her education in Paris, France, throughout the 80s and early 90s. So a little context: the title is meant to be ironic. Persia, which is present-day Iran, is where this novel takes place. Persepolis was an ancient city, and if you translate that, it literally means Persian city. And as Westerners, we are told terrible stories about the Middle East from the media. So the way I see it, Persepolis sounds like a nice place. Persepolis doesn't sound war-torn and stuff like that. All the images and stuff that is depicted about Iran, I don't really think about that when I hear Persepolis. So the title is meant to deceive the audience, deceive those who's reading it. Like I said, it was intended for Western audiences. It was actually published in France, and it was translated from French. She really did not mean for anyone in the Middle East to read it. This was more so a book for us to see that see things from her perspective of what it's growing up in Iran. And she wanted to write about her personal experiences as a way to dispel the rumors. Like I said earlier, whenever we hear about those countries in the Middle East, it's never good. It's always something terrible. It's always something terribly wrong, whether it's how they treat their people or what goes on or who's ruling it and stuff like that. It's never any positive stuff. And I can see why she would want to write something from her perspective. So, some themes. Irony is a really big thing. Like I said, the title, education. Satrapi, like, Satrapi doesn't take anything from anybody. She educates herself. All the stuff that she reads in the books over there, she knows like not all of this is correct. So she goes and does her own research about her own things and learns about stuff that she's interested in. And individuality, like I said, like a big thing about this is individuality. Like, she's her, no matter what, no matter who says anything, no matter who looks at her a certain way, she's her. And I think there's something really cool about that, and that a lot of people can take away from that. So why are they important? She had a very interesting childhood. Like I said, like the stuff that we see on about like these underdeveloped countries and stuff like that, like the commercials you see about Africa and stuff like that, you think everybody's impoverished and stuff like that. And the way that the media can control the narrative of how we perceive things is crazy. She refuses to be like others. She becomes frustrated with wearing veils. She's accosted by her teachers and stuff like that for not wearing veils the way that women are supposed to wear them in public. She fights to wear her rock band shirts and stuff like that, and her shoes and stuff like that. Just other stuff, like as you can see in the photo below, they're all supposed to look like this, and she wants to look differently. The Middle East, specifically Iran, places like that, they get a very bad rep. We only hear about the bad. We only hear about the dictators and stuff like that. We don't ever hear anything positive come out of those countries. And to reinforce this, she like shows like, yeah, like this stuff goes on. Yeah, we've had a terrible history, stuff like that, like any other place in the world. But like that should not define us, and it shouldn't define all the good people that the country does have. So some questions that I would have for you guys to discuss. Would you be able to live in a country with circumstances similar to Iran's? If so, why? Will this novel be as impactful from a male's perspective or someone of a different gender? Do you think someone from the West, aka like the US, UK, Canada, New Zealand, do you think anybody could write something similar to Persepolis and it still have the same impact? And these are my sites. Thank you.